Hello everybody, we have our Week 6 CFL previews slash predictions slash picks, whatever you want to call it, and of course talking about these games and then who I will be picking, and then hopefully you will say who you will be picking as well at the end of the video. Please make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Now let's get to it. So the first game we have is later on tonight, Edmonton at Montreal. There's a few storylines here. Taylor Cornelius will be starting for the Edmonton Elks as Trey Ford went down with an injury, and then Nick Arbuckle was traded. So Cornelius started some for Edmonton last year. Didn't have the best results, but in general that was a pretty rough year for the team. Has experience in the CFL as well as the XFL, I believe, with the Tampa Bay Vipers. So we will see if he's able to get things going in this game. And then a big storyline here is going to be whether or not Edmonton is able to limit Montreal's passing attack. They have the worst opponent completion percentage in the league at 77.1%, and then they also have the worst opposing quarterback rating, which is where the quarterback rating is higher, or the highest in the league. Of course, when teams play Edmonton, I think that they might have more than a few picks, but they also have allowed a lot of touchdowns. Didn't go back through and check the interceptions, but interceptions are nice, but not nearly as nice as limiting touchdowns at a high rate. And I think for them, the biggest thing here is, can you contain Eugene Lewis? And if not, what are you going to do? And if you can, then you're probably in a good spot. Now, the other thing here is going to be whether or not Montreal can or can't run the ball. If they can, I don't really know if it makes an impact, but if they can't, I also think that it could be a benefit to Montreal if they get to be one-dimensional. Sounds weird, but Edmonton is going up against the Owls, and in the past 3 weeks, they have had just 32 carries by their backs, they being Antwi and Fletcher in these past 3 games, so they're averaging, not a lot of carries per game. Between the two, you have Dominic Davis, who is, of course, getting those QB sneaks, but in general, Montreal has not run the ball a lot since Stanback's injury. And I guess if things work out, why don't you just become one-dimensional and pass against it? If you're Edmonton, maybe you can try to limit the run and then limit the pass. But of course, if you can stop the run, but then if they just don't run and pass and can't stop the pass, it's going to be a huge problem. I am picking Montreal in this game over the Elks just because I don't really know if Cornelius is going to be able to beat a guy like Harris, and Montreal, I think, is a better team. Now, going on over to Winnipeg, we have Calgary at Winnipeg. This is a battle of the last 2 teams in the league that are undefeated. What is Calgary going to do after their bye week? They had the week off, had a week to prepare for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a team that is undefeated, has won back-to-back Grey Cups. Zach Collaros has been amazing since he's gone over there. Calgary needed this week, in my opinion, to figure out how they were best going to not only game plan offensively, but defensively for Winnipeg, as they look to be pretty good, even though before that, their offense looked like it had struggled throughout the year. I am curious to see if Calgary is sleepy or ready to go in this matchup. And then another storyline here is, did Winnipeg flex their muscles too hard against the BC Lions? This is not an X's and O's thing. This is not a strategy thing. I think for me, when you play a team that is really, up and coming, and you want to prove yourself after you've had kind of a slower start to the year, you want to be able not only to beat them, but to beat them badly. That's exactly what Winnipeg did. Now, you have to move past that, which I'm sure they'll do a good job of, but also be ready for this game against the Stampeders, as you want to keep that top spot in the West. And if you lose this game, of course, Calgary would take over as the top seed, not only in the West, but in the CFL in general. We are going to see whether or not the Blue Bombers are ready to take on a team that, of course, has been dominant since, really, I've been alive. For the most part. And then finally, I think a big storyline here will be whether or not Calgary's receiving core can expose Winnipeg's defense. Now, the Blue Bombers have had the ability to limit points, but they've given up a lot of passing yards. You have Tyquan Glass, Winston Rose struggling. You're going up against the Stampeders offense that has Levi Mitchell at quarterback. Worst comes to worst, you put out Jake Mayer. But the receiving core features Reggie Bagleton, Malik Henry, and Kamar Jordan. Malik Henry is coming off a very big game. He had an 89-yard touchdown, 150 total yards, through the air. Kamar Jordan, a guy that has had injuries but has proven himself. And then Reggie Begelton had an opportunity to go on to the NFL for the Packers and ended up coming back but put up big stats. If Calgary is able to expose Winnipeg's secondary, then this is going to be a very good game and maybe highlights what could be a future playoff game and whether or not we could see Calgary be able to upset the two-time defending champs. I am going to be picking Winnipeg in this, although I feel like this is a game Calgary could win. All comes down to that secondary. Of course, the trenches with Jeffcoat and Jefferson is going to be big there. Calgary is going to be very busy offensively. But if they give Bo Levi Mitchell time, I do think this receiving core can do some damage. But picking Winnipeg. Now moving on over to the Saskatchewan-Toronto game, the touchdown Atlantic game. Not a lot I like to say about this. Unfortunately, I would do a preview and kind of go into a little bit of the storylines here, but I think you have a lot outside of this. The first thing, can Saskatchewan get past the game against the Ottawa Red Blacks, the Garrett Marino incident, losing Peter Robertson? That is big. You're losing two guys on the defensive line, and you are dealing with all the craziness that came out of that game. Can they move past that, and can they move up to this game and win it against a team like Toronto that I think is a team they should beat? We'll have to see. But yeah, you got to put it aside, and you got to get back to work. And as for Toronto, will they come out rusty after the bye? The reality is, ever since I've had my account, I have not been a huge proponent for the Argonauts. Not that I don't like them, but I'm just saying I don't believe in them. I don't think that McLeod Bethel-Thompson is the guy to lead them to a Grey Cup. I don't know if they have a Grey Cup roster. And at the moment, when you're a team that is the best in the East, because the East is an absolute dumpster fire right now, you have to get back to those memories of 2021 where you were 9-5, winning close games, and having a chance to go on to the Grey Cup. Is this team capable of making the Grey Cup? Yes, I think so. Are they capable of beating teams like Saskatchewan? We'll have to see. Had a week to prepare. Going to see if that pays off here. And then the final part of this is, what is the atmosphere going to be like? This will be the first touchdown Atlanta game since 2019, if I had to say. And apparently it sold out within an hour of it being posted. Going to be 10,000 seats available, 10,000 tickets sold. I don't want to try to sound like the mean guy here, but apparently you think of what the Argonauts are able to bring in per game, it's probably like 8,500, 9,000 fans. This game could probably draw more fans than what a typical Argonauts game would, which is good for the CFL to also get that interest up there in the Maritimes. I would love to see some talk about adding a 10th team. This is not going to be the thing where suddenly we're getting a 10th team, but to show that they can sell and get this crowd here and hopefully get that atmosphere going. Maybe, just maybe, this could be another stepping stone to deciding about eventually adding that 10th team. Don't think it'll happen just because the market right now is just terrible. But I am picking Saskatchewan here. If Toronto wins, that's good. That shows that they can beat those better teams. But right now I got to go with the Rough Riders. And then the final game of the week, Ottawa at Hamilton. I think there's a lot to unpack in this game. Will Ottawa be able to move past what happened with Saskatchewan? You lose Mazzoli. You're dealing with all the drama of that game. You're 0-4. Is Paul LaPolice going to get fired? Big stories. A lot of things happening around this team where I think their roster is good. In fact, I would wager out of all the teams in the East, I picked them to finish last in the East just because I had no idea what was going on. But at the moment, I'm going to change this. I think if Mazzoli was healthy, this team could beat any team in the East and go on to the Grey Cup if they're able to sneak past a West team for the crossover, which I do think they'd be able to. But right now, they're not there. They are in a spot where they're 0-4 and have to claw their way back into a playoff push. Are they going to be able to against another team that doesn't have a win in the Hamilton Tiger Cats? We will see, which ties into the next thing. How will Caleb Evans do now that Jeremiah Mazzoli is gone? Caleb Evans, a guy that had a great CFL debut against the Edmonton Elks last year. Then things tapered off for a variety of reasons. I think especially the talent around him was not great. And for him, sometimes I think he would just commit to the run when he didn't have to. And then, of course, when there wasn't opportunities to throw, you're just not going to be able to make things happen there unless you're a franchise quarterback. Don't know if Evans is yet. I do like his potential. I do like the fact that he's young and he's going to get some experience here. Of course, they have Arbuckle, but he's not going to play. At least I don't think he would in this game. Will Evans be able to get that form? And if he does, Ottawa's in a really good spot to win this game. And then final thing here for this game is going to be, will the Tiger Cats and Dane Evans be able to limit turnovers? Dane Evans has believe, 12 turnovers through 4 games. And the Tiger Cats are off to their first 0-4 start since 2017. All of those turnovers, not necessarily his fault. And I have said before, there needs to be a stat or a new stat added for when a receiver is really the cause for an interception, but still, Evans has turned over the ball quite a bit and at very inopportune times. If he doesn't have that fumble from Titus Wall, they win that game against Calgary. And then there's some other instances of bad turnovers. Of course, the Edmonton Elks game, that's a big one there. You're looking at them being 2-2 instead of 0-4. If you limit turnovers, you're in a good spot for Hamilton, because I still think that the Tiger Cats are not a bad team. Tiger Cats should be a team that should be able to make the playoffs. I had them finishing second in the East. I still think they could get there. They just got to turn it around and play Ottawa. This game is really tough too. I ended up picking Hamilton. That is my pick for this game, simply because I do think Ottawa has a better team. But losing Mazzoli will be big, especially because I don't know if Evans will be able to push, Caleb Evans that is, will be able to push the ball downfield like Mazzoli will, and we'll have to see. What are your thoughts for the games this week? Make sure to leave your picks down below in the comments. Make sure to like this video as well if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night.